Chapter 5. Abdul Lateef Muhammad, Servant of the Most Kind. Abdul Lateef Muhammad took over the leadership of the city of Hanafiya. He was deeply loved by the people. A fair and just ruler, he made several improvements to the city that eased the lives of its citizens. He continued the tradition of storytelling, but his heart no longer seemed in it. Over time, he began to prefer solitude and meditation over the comforts of the palace. Unlike his father, he rarely spent time among the poor. Instead, he developed a passion for sailing on the sea not far from Hanafiya. Alone on the open water beneath the twinkling stars, he felt at home, spending hours reflecting in stillness. The people became accustomed to his long absences. One day, a tremendous storm struck Hanafiya and raged for 3 days. Everyone feared that Abdul Lateef was at sea in his sailboat. When the storm subsided, search parties were sent, but no trace of him could be found. Weeks turned into months. Abdul Lateef did not return. Mora sent for her brother Abdur Rahim to help rule the kingdom. Far from Hanafiya, an old woman gathering crabs at the shoreline saw what looked like a log being carried in by the tide. As it rolled ashore, she realized it was no ordinary log. Covered in seaweed and crustaceans, it revealed itself to be a man. In a panic, she called her husband. They found that the man was still alive. They pulled him to safety and, with the help of a neighbor, carried him to their small 2-room hut. The woman began cleaning him. The crustaceans had attached themselves so firmly that removing them left deep pitted wounds across his body. The man was unconscious. Her husband called for the local hakim, who advised soaking the crustaceans in oil before removal, and gave her medicine in case the man awoke in pain. She followed the instructions, and slowly, day by day, she removed the crustaceans. His body was a landscape of deep scars. Though his appearance was harrowing, she could tell he had once been a striking young man. For 3 days and nights, the old couple stayed by his side. On the 4th day, a faint whisper came from his lips. "Allahu, Allahu, Allahu." She gave him some broth and water, and he fell asleep. Whenever he repeated Allahu, she gave him the medicine, sensing that he called to his Lord in pain. 2 weeks passed. The man grew stronger each day. The ulcers began to heal, and soon he sat up, confused, unable to remember who he was or how he had come to be there. The old woman recounted how she had found him, how they had cared for him. When she asked his name, he could not recall it. She and her husband began calling him John. He accepted the name and began calling her Mother. Though his past was a blank, John found comfort in the stories of the prophets that returned to his memory. He often dreamt of Prophet Ayub, peace be upon him, whispering his name in sleep. One day, the woman asked, "Is your name Ayub? You speak that name often." "No, mother," he replied. "He is a great prophet who visits me in dreams." "Tell me about him," she said. "Perhaps it will bring you peace." And so Abdul Lateef told her the story. A group of angels once praised the humility and patience of mankind, saying that Allah loves those who are grateful and humble. One angel declared that the best of all humans at that time was Ayub, wealthy, kind, and always in remembrance of Allah. Iblis, Satan, heard this and grew jealous. He claimed that Ayub only worshipped Allah because of his blessings. So, Allah permitted Iblis to test Ayub, his body, but not his soul or faith. Iblis destroyed Ayub's cattle, servants, farms, and wealth. Then he killed his children by collapsing their house. Each time, Ayub responded with unshaken faith and gratitude. Finally, Iblis afflicted Ayub's body with disease, reducing him to skin and bones, yet he remained patient and trusting in Allah. Only his wife stayed by his side, caring for him through many years of illness. One day, overwhelmed by grief, she pleaded with Ayub to call upon Allah to end his suffering. Ayub asked her, "How long did we live in comfort?" She said, 80 years. "And how long have I suffered?" 7 years. Ayub replied, "I would be ashamed to ask Allah after enjoying so many good years." Later, in a moment of weakness, she insisted again. Ayub, distressed, vowed to strike her if he recovered, and then forbade himself from accepting her care. She wept and left. In his helplessness, Ayub turned to Allah, not to complain, but in humility. "Verily, distress has seized me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful." Allah answered his prayer, healed his body, restored his family, and returned all he had lost. Allah even guided Ayub to strike his wife with a blade of grass 100 times, fulfilling his vow without harming her. Allah is merciful to the humble and grateful. The old couple listened in awe. The story gave Abdul Lateef hope. Perhaps, like Ayub, he too was being tested. He decided to bring the message of Islam to the people of Suranbad. With his face still scarred, he wrapped it with a turban and cheerfully went to the town square, reciting verses from the Quran. At first, only the old couple listened, but gradually more people came, drawn by his beautiful voice and moving stories. Even the children who once ran from him began to sit and listen, captivated. They began to ask questions about Allah and where these stories came from. Over time, his scars began to fade. Eventually, he stopped covering his face altogether. One day, Suranbad prepared for a royal wedding. The prince of Suranbad was marrying a princess from Hanavia. As the procession passed by, Mora, the bride-to-be, and Abdur Rahim rode in a white carriage. Mora spotted a man sitting on the ground with one leg bent, just as her brother Abdul Lateef used to sit. She cried out, "Stop the carriage!" Turning to her brother, she whispered, "Look! That man, he sits just like Lateef. They asked about the man. The townspeople replied, "We call him John. He was washed ashore months ago. He remembers nothing of his past." Mora was certain. She approached him quietly and whispered, "Lateef, Lateef." The man paused. A tremor ran through him. Then he whispered, "Mora." She rushed to him, wrapping him in a tight embrace, but he looked at her blankly. "Who are you?" "I am your sister," she said, but there was no recognition. Abdur Rahim stepped forward. "I am your brother. Don't you remember?" Confused and overwhelmed, Abdul Lateef clutched his head in pain and retreated to the old woman's hut. That night, he walked alone along the beach, memories surfacing in fragments. He prayed for clarity. That night, he slept deeply. By morning, his memory had fully returned. He made wudu, offered fajr, and rushed to the palace. There, in a room full of dignitaries, Mora and Abdur Rahim waited anxiously. As he entered, he opened his arms to Mora. She cried with joy and embraced him. "I'm so sorry for yesterday," he said. but now I remember everything. At breakfast, he shared his story: the storm, the shipwreck, the old couple who saved him, the months of recovery, and the mission he had begun in Suranbad. Abdur Rahim introduced him to the prince and the king. The celebration resumed with newfound joy. The wedding took place the next day. Mora was married to the prince of Suranbad. The celebrations continued for 10 days. When it was time to return to Hanavia, Abdur Rahim prepared for the journey. But Abdul Lateef declined. He explained that he had found peace in Suranbad. The old woman who had saved him was frail. He wished to care for her. Mora was now nearby, and he felt like he had a family again. He was also committed to continuing his dawah. The people were eager to learn, but much work remained. He asked Abdur Rahim to remain ruler of Hanavia. Abdul Lateef spent the rest of his life in Suranbad. He built a beautiful mosque and opened a madrasa for children to learn the Quran for free. His fame spread far and wide. Scholars traveled to Suranbad to study Tajweed under him and to witness the humility, wisdom, and kindness of the man who had once been lost at sea and found by Allah.